in your locality are interested in. You should say what the news is, how you know about this news, who is involved in this news, and explain why it is interesting to people. Answer: I came across this intriguing article in a newspaper I read at my school's library. It involved how positive attitudes have greatly affected people's success, based on the story of how a local woman had never given up her dream and had now become a world-famous novelist. According to the news story, optimistic people are more likely to be successful. Since they look at the bright side, their lives are always full of enjoyment. Therefore, when running into problems, optimists try their best to work out solutions. This leads them to great achievements. In contrast, pessimistic people tend to act negatively, which not only puts them under a lot of strain, but also has a bad impact on their performance and people around them. Since I read this news, I have tried to maintain positive attitudes about everything. Whenever I fail to do something, I will not blame myself, but work harder to overcome such failure. I hope that, like this woman, everybody can learn to be optimistic about whatever situation they face. Vocabulary: intriguing, adjective, very interesting, because the news was unusual. Example: he told me an intriguing story about how a shark had once attacked him while he was swimming in the sea. Had never given up, phrasal verb, had never abandoned. She had always continued to believe in her dream. Example: the police announced that after 10 days they had finally given up looking for survivors of the air crash. World famous, adjective, known all over the world. Example: McDonald's is a world-famous chain of fast food restaurants. Novelist, noun, a person who writes novels, fictional stories. Example: the author of the Harry Potter books used to teach English, but now she is a world-famous novelist. Optimistic, adjective, expecting good things to happen or to be successful. Example: he was optimistic about his chances of passing the exam because he had studied hard. Look at, on the bright side. Expression: to be cheerful about a bad situation by thinking of the advantages, not the disadvantages. Example: although you have lost your keys, look on the bright side. Your brother has a copy of all of them. Work out solutions. Phrasal verb, think of solutions. Example: engineers work out solutions to many technical problems when they design new buildings. Pessimistic, adjective, expecting bad things to happen or expecting things to fail. Example: the patient was very ill and the doctors were pessimistic about his chances of recovering. Puts them under a lot of strain. Expression: puts a lot of pressure on them because they are worried about being able to solve a difficulty. Example: the team has lost every match, so this puts them under a lot of strain when they have to face new opponents. Whatever, any or every situation. Example: whatever the situation about your travel visa, we will work out a solution together. January 2016. Describe the first time you used a foreign language to communicate. You should say what the situation was, where you were, who you communicated with, and explain why you used a foreign language to communicate on this occasion. Answer: I have been learning English for a long time, but I haven't had many chances to practice speaking English with native speakers. To the best of my recollection, the first time I used it was on Christmas Eve 3 years ago. At that time, I was hanging out with my friends. Suddenly, a foreigner came up to me and asked for directions to a supermarket. Honestly, he spoke too quickly for me to catch everything, but after he repeated his words, I finally understood and showed him the way to the nearest supermarket. I used body language a lot to explain the directions to him, since I didn't speak English well then. After that, he said thank you to me and headed for the supermarket. I realized that English plays an important role in our life, despite the fact that we don't live in English-speaking countries. It is spoken globally, and it's becoming the dominant language. Therefore, I have been trying to practice speaking English daily so that I can have a good command of this language, and I can talk confidently with foreigners, whatever the topic of conversation. Vocabulary. To the best of my recollection. Expression, if I remember correctly. Example: I was not present at that meeting, to the best of my recollection. Hanging out, phrasal verb. Spending a lot of time in a particular place, but doing no special activity. Example: my friends and I enjoy hanging out at our local coffee shop, just chatting and enjoying a coffee. Came up to, phrasal verb. Approached. Example: the manager came up to me and shook my hand. Catch everything. Expression: hear or understand everything that he said. Example: at the train station, it was too noisy to hear all the information clearly, and I was unable to catch everything. Body language. Noun. The way that you show what you feel or think by moving your body. Example: sometimes our teacher uses body language, not words, to help to communicate an idea. Headed for, phrasal verb. Moved in a particular direction. Example: after the show finished, everyone headed for the exits. Have a good command of. Expression: have a good knowledge of something. Example: people who apply for this job must have a good command of English in order to communicate with our American customers.